This is Chuck Martin at the AI Summit, and I'm happy to say I'm here with Mr. Unilever, just off the stage, Alberto Prado. Welcome.
Thank you.
So you literally just came off the stage.
Yes, it was great. Just literally, we finished there 20 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago, and it was great to talk about what we're doing with artificial intelligence at Unilever.
So why is that with Unilever?
Why AI with Unilever? Well, you'll be surprised, but we've been using artificial intelligence and high-performance computing and data for quite some time now, because it helps us drive what we call in silico innovation. So basically, rather than spending years and years in a lab to come up with new formulations and the way that it has been done traditionally, we're doing more with computational models because it helps us accelerate the speed at which we can come up with new discoveries, and also it gives us access to much more breakthrough innovation.
So where is the real action now in a consumer goods company? Where's the real action for AI? Is it in product development, in innovation, or where?
So it happens across across many parts of the organization. So I'm probably going to focus on R&D, but there's a lot of AI development happening in marketing as well and in supply chain. But within the R&D space, we use AI for research. Science and technologies, we call it, all the way from there to design and deploy. So about maybe the entire R&D organization, typically in a research environment, you would create the models that are then used in other parts of R&D. That's the way that it works.
So at this point, are you at proof of concept for a lot of things, or are you scaling?
No, we're scaling. We scale, absolutely scaling. So we started to work on AI many years ago. But the thing is, as the tools to develop AI models have become more sophisticated, and more accessible as well for people to use, as our data has become rich and our ability to manage data end to end has become, has improved. And as the processing power that we have access to has significantly improved as well, all these three things are making it possible for us to probably move the envelope of what is possible to do with AI compared to maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago.
So are you looking at anything that's consumer facing, or is this mostly internal use?
You mean consumer facing from a perspective of integrating AI into our products?
Yes.
So not yet, but if you work in a technology company, you can embed sensors and connectivity and AI into your products, because there's a lot of electronics in them already. But Unilever is a company that is more, if you look at our products, whether it's foods, ice creams, home care products or skincare, beauty and personal well-being and so on, these are largely from a scientific perspective, they're chemistry and biology together, so we cannot easily embed technology in our products. We do often, we started to do with our packaging as well, but we use AI largely to develop new groundbreaking innovation in our products, which then obviously get translated into commercial products.
So are you leveraging a lot of consumer data for that?
Yes, we do. Like many other fast-moving consumer goods organizations, we look at the market, we use AI to better understand and even predict consumer trends. In ways that allows us then to innovate in more relevant ways. We're using AI also to get those consumer insights and figure out, what are the requirements on the product? Can we translate from a predictive, capabilities that we have on consumer trends? Can we translate those insights into a holistic set of requirements for product superiority? And how much can we drive it through data? Right? And then we know what we need to develop for, and we know that if we get it out there in the market, it's bound to be meeting consumer needs.
So in consumer goods, pretty much for all consumer goods, a company like yours creates a product, and then it gives a distributor takes it, and then it goes to a consumer, and you know what distributors sold it to what consumer, but you don't have that last piece, do you, of the link to the consumer usage?
So we don't, but what we do is, and you're absolutely right, the way that this industry works is that we have a few direct-to-consumer businesses, but by and large our business is through retailers. So do we have that connection with consumers? Well, we have through our brand. So consumers are connected to our brand values, so to speak, and we connect to them via a number of mechanisms, whether it's social listening. So we try to understand how consumers are reacting to our products and be very agile at responding to that. Now, one of the things, interestingly that you asked that question, because one of the things that we've been talking about in our presentation is, in a future where there is a metaverse, for example, what is the role of companies in terms of interacting and engaging in novel ways with consumers? And is there a possibility to co-create products directly with consumers in a highly personalized way? So I think that, given the sort of the industry, the technologies that are coming our way, I think you could think of a big trend towards personalization that requires you to understand consumers at an individual level, and maybe as a result be more effective at delivering consumer products that consumers need. And
So are you ultimately, or companies like you, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but looking at technology that where consumer packaged good would be wired essentially with sensors, so that when something is used, it's measured that it's got used?
I wouldn't say. And I'm, talking about my personal views on these. I think you can achieve that through partnerships and through working within ecosystems. You don't need to own that entire thing, right? So you don't need to build, electronics capabilities into an FMCG company to be able to engage with consumers with more electronic products that are connected. You can partner, and we're looking into partnering with, it could be startups or large technology companies that have those capabilities that can be combined with our knowledge and understanding of science, and maybe create an integrated solution that is more effective at addressing consumer needs than the individual pieces.
When that time comes, which I agree, and I've seen some of the technology, doesn't that totally change the dynamic? Because all of a sudden, a consumer goods company knows the usage of the product. It basically changes the whole dynamic of, in terms of research.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think we talked about, and we need to be careful when it comes to data and privacy as well, and we try to be super protective. Usage data is owned by consumers. Any kind of, we talked about digital twins and virtual footprints of individuals, and we talked about it in the presentation. There was one great question about these. That data, as much as your health records, your digital health records, is owned by you, and you should always have the prerogative to decide who gets access to that data and who do you trust will create something great with that data that will benefit your needs.
So in your position, you get to see everything technologically. Does anything surprise you?
Yes. I'm surprised every day by many things, and I think you need to keep that, child spirit of being surprised by things. Yes, it does. I think, but more recently, what has surprised me has not necessarily been technology, but rather human being, and we're in the middle of this digital transformation at Unilever R&D. So certainly we invest in technology and we invest in data and we build all the capabilities that we need to have access to create innovation. But what I get most energy from, if I'm honest with you, and what I get surprised most is the ability for people to grow and adapt new ways of working and embrace technology and reimagine how they should be working now that they have access to all of these in order to amplify what they do.
And then when you bring a solution into your company, and you're using AI to do it, you just talk about the solution, not the AI?
Depends on who you talk to, obviously. If I'm addressing a technology audience or our colleagues from IT or science, we talk a lot about AI and the ways to, I guess, to drive all the ethics and transparency and everything that is around AI development. It needs to be done in the right way. So we talk about the mechanisms that we use to deliver value. When we talk about, with the business and with other parts of the organization, we talk about what that AI does, the value that it brings, which is much more important than how we got there. But if you don't know how to get there, then you won't create the value you're intending to do.
So a year from now, we're sitting here having this conversation. Will we be talking about the same thing or something different?
I think, so part of my talk was oriented towards what's coming next. What is the next 2 to 3 to 4 years? And we talked about quantum computing, we talked about foundation AI, we talked about hyper-automation, Web3, Metaverse, and all these things. So I think a year from now, because I think this area moves very, very fast, I think we might be surprised by how fast these things are maturing, maybe even faster than we believe they can. Because I think we tend to follow this profile of innovations, peak of inflated expectations, then the valley of despair, if you like, and then the sort of the plateau of profitability. I think what is changing is not necessarily the profile of that curve. It always will be there, but the speed at which you go through it. Right? So what we see today, it's almost like looking backwards into the future. You assess the future based on what we know from the past. I think we will be surprised by how fast it will go.
So, and lastly, has the pandemic changed basically how your company operates, or is it the same?
Yes, I think, I don't think that's specific to Unilever as such. If you ask anyone leading digital transformation in any big organization, they will tell you that the lockdown was the single biggest accelerator of digital transformation, right? Because there was no other way of continuing to do what you were doing. From a business continuity perspective, you had to embrace digital tools that allowed you to work remotely, not having to go to the lab to do the physical stuff, but actually relying on algorithms and on data to do your work. And obviously, after 2 years, people go back to where they were before, and they say, look, this was great. We were able to achieve not the same, even more through the use of digital tools. And we want to continue, I think we want to leverage that as a Kickstarter and make sure that it becomes widespread.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, it was great.